Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Temelkov.
Hello, dear audience. Welcome and happy Wednesday. Today we have the opportunity and privilege to welcome a very dear guest to my heart, somebody that I've known for many years, and we'll talk about topics that are very dear, which is talent, diversity, and care. And as you know, we're on a mission to bring together some of the most caring leaders from every corner of the world. And today we have the privilege to welcome Umran Beba. Umran is originally actually born in Turkey. So Umran, I believe you're the first one from a wonderful country and really appreciate you very much. But Umran has been a water pioneer and leader for many years, being at the highest level with companies like PepsiCo as the Chief Talent and Diversity Officer of this large multi-billion organization. She is involved in many activities, including supporting women in leadership and entrepreneurship with a foundation. And also she is a partner of a company that deals with leadership and executive search and executive coaching as well today. So Umran, would love to hear about all of those. And welcome on board, first of all, and thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you for the invitation, and it's great to see you, after the pandemic and everything that happened in the world. We are live here speaking, and, there are many in-person events also now we enjoy finally. So it's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Umran. It's indeed, first of all, grateful that we can have this chat and discussion today. There's so many things, of course, to talk about, but starting with yourself today and really for the audience that do not know you, you are really very passionate about diversity, inclusion, talent. Maybe starting with how did that passion develop in you, first of all?
Thank you.
Really, there's probably some roots to where you come from, what you've done in the past, but yeah, it would be great to hear
Yes.
a little bit more about that journey and that story.
Thank you. So I have been in the corporate world for 35 years. As you mentioned, started my career in Turkey and then I joined Colgate Palmolive. After that, for 25 years, I was with PepsiCo. In total, 35 years in corporate is a lot. And in 2020, I said, okay, it's time to develop my second career. But before moving to that, as I said, starting in Turkey and then having general management roles, president roles, covering Middle East at some point, and then Southeast Europe. And as a family, we moved to Hong Kong as I, became the president of Asia Pacific in 2010. And after that, moving to Dubai with my family again as the CHRO for Asia, Middle East, North Africa. And 6 years ago, we landed in the US. And I'm joining this morning from Greenwich, Connecticut, United States. So that has been a very dynamic career, I should say. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity. As I was the general manager and the president, I was most of the time the only woman in the room in different meetings, especially starting in Middle East. And I said, it's time for me to take a lead in 2006, that this is not the way it should be. We need more women in the boardrooms, in general management roles, in any part of the organization. So we started that journey with the support of my, at that time, CEO and CHRO. and I developed programs there. And when I moved to different locations, I was able to really promote this idea of we need more women in general management, in the boardroom. And I'm still doing that after, 16 years. And at some point, this took me to the chief diversity officer role at PepsiCo, which was great. But as you know, diversity we will talk about is beyond just women. I would like to also explain that later. But today, what I'm doing in my second career is basically being located in the US, but traveling a lot back to my home country, Turkey, and many other places. I have board duties in a public company in UK. We have a family foundation supporting women and young people in entrepreneurship, and also in my role as the search and the advisory person, I'm trying to promote diverse slates, diverse candidates, and also coaching, supporting the diversity agenda in the organizations.
Well, thank you so much, Umram. And just by the way, congratulations on your book that you've published. Tell us more about this and what inspired you to write it.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I actually retired from the corporate world in 2020, just after the pandemic started, and I think that gave me the energy to work with one of my high school friends. She's also in the field of management, but more on the communication and the PR side and the corporate social responsibility. And we decided that, we should hear the voices of leaders with purpose, including our experiences. And we pulled together 17 interviews with Turkish and global leaders at the CEO chair people level. And this book was launched in February in Turkey, and the name is Değer Yaratan Liderler, which means leaders with purpose. And now we are in the second edition, and we are also, finalizing the translations into English for wider audience. But the whole idea is leadership is, yes, of course, driving performance first in the organizations, but also making sure you care about sustainability, you care about social impact, community support, and overall corporate social responsibility. So that's the main focus, and I'm so happy to achieve that.
What does purpose mean to you as a leader?
I started thinking about purpose really in 2006-7. I think that time was an important period in my life. As I mentioned, I started my focus on diversity, but also Um, at that time, PepsiCo started launching the performance with purpose with Indra Nui's leadership. But also, I have attended a couple of trainings about authentic leadership and authentic woman leadership. So, at the end of the day, I think purpose is creating a sustainable future for our businesses, for our people, communities, and also for our own, families, children. So that's the way I think I started the journey beyond diversity, also that caring about environment, people in the organization, but also for our communities. And when I moved to Asia Pacific, located in Hong Kong, but covering 25 countries, I was going to places like Vietnam, Philippines, Pakistan, Thailand, where they needed more than just, companies coming and opening factories and selling products. They were in need of so many things: education, water, electricity. I mean, the very basic needs. So we started doing programs in addition to our own operations. We started working with the community, bringing water, clean water, and light to their villages, to their surroundings, and also opening reading rooms for children. So it was part of, I mean, it was a need. So you have to see it as a business leader and bring some of your resources as, money, but also time, and make sure that your communities also rise with your operations in that country. I think that's very critical.
Well, absolutely. You can do a lot of good with business, and that's what we really believe is
Yeah.
business leaders that business can be a great catalyst for uh, positive impact, but also enabler as well. So it's not just about the
Yes.
profit. It's important to be sustainable, but really it's also equally important to take care of everything around you,
Hmm.
not just your profits. And this is really very nice to hear that you were able to combine that bond, those really social responsibility and also business impact and profitability at the same time. Do you think this moving forward and looking at what's coming, especially in the light of crisis, what do you think business leaders or leaders with purpose should do at these times in order to because everybody wants something from the leader or the CEO or the particular business unit manager, for example. Either there's better performance, people may want higher salaries, government want higher taxes. How could they manage all that, especially when things are tough, when things are in a turnaround, in a way where they still take care of the people?
Yeah, I think the leadership is not definitely, becoming easy. It's getting more complicated, more difficult. But if you understand the logic of why you are in that position, I think it will be definitely easier for the leader to have a plan. So there are many stakeholders today that we need to take care of. Of course, it starts with the shareholders. If you're a private company, public company, there will be always shareholders that you need to make sure they are taken care of and they get their returns. But as that's happening, you are also working with your employees to achieve those results. So you need to make sure that you reflect the diversity of the population, of the consumer customer base into your organization. You bring those diverse ideas at the table to drive innovation growth and delivering the best results. So that really takes care of diversity, inclusion, equity, but in a way that will help your business. It's not just for the sake of being diverse, right? And then you are definitely using resources from the environment. So how do you make sure your impact on the environment is not negative, and if possible turning into positive? um, so that's the carbon emissions, that's the water you use, the waste. How can you make sure the waste is decreased or eliminated from the system? But that has also a productivity impact on the business. It's not again only for the idea of doing good for the environment. When you do these things, it's also helping your business in terms of productivity. And then the communities, of course, you are in a setting where you serve the world or you serve a certain location, and how can you support their well-being so they can be also at the end of the day having better lives, having better incomes, having better future, so that you can grow together. I mean, that's as simple as that. It's good for business. It's not only for the sake of just doing good, but it's good for business, good for future, and at the end of the day, for all the stakeholders.
So it is possible basically to achieve all of those things as long as you have a plan. May not be able to achieve all of them in a year, for example, but it's really
Yeah.
if anything, what you're saying by starting to give and take better care of each stakeholder, you start to receive more in return, and you just need
Yeah,
to
you
go.
start with the business strategy, and then in time, you develop, of course, your sustainability strategy, talent and diversity strategy. So they should be all integrated. Um, and at the end of the
Interesting. You
day,
just said, yeah. Obviously, the business strategy, talent, and diversity strategies. That's interesting. I haven't heard that combination in the three. That needs to be integrated. Is that what you did? Basically, integrating those strategies. Was that your?
you definitely we did, and it all starts with the business strategy. But it was so interesting actually to see some of our business leaders were coming to the meetings, And they were starting with the talent strategy. Because if you don't have the right people, let's take a place like China, if you don't have the right people, if you don't have the right pipeline, how can you make sure you build a sustainable business which will deliver those results? So you need the talent. You need to attract first, develop them, and make sure they grow into global leaders. So I have seen these examples that people come, the leaders coming to meetings and starting with their talent strategy to be successful in their business strategy, in their sustainability strategy. So actually, it all depends on also your conditions and situations. So this cannot be taken out of context. So your business might be very new, your needs will be different. Your business might be very large and established, your needs will be different. So it's a matter of prioritization. Where do you put your efforts? Because you can't do all of these things, the good part, the sustainability strategies, you cannot activate them all together, as you say. It's a 10-year, 20-year plan, but what do you do in the first year? What do you do in the 3 years? So you need at least always like top 5 things to focus on in a given year. And then you need to have long-term goals, and you need to make your leaders in the organization accountable for those results. Uh, so it takes a village, to achieve these things, but the leadership plays a key role. And then you have to take all the organization with you to deliver. And believe me, today employees are looking forward to these type of leadership, and they will jump in and raise their hand, and they will be in cascading, activating those initiatives, either in their jobs, day-to-day jobs, or in their communities. They will give up their time, they will volunteer and go to the communities and make sure the communities also grow and with prosperity, basically.
You talk about inclusivity and really how can leaders, what does leaders can do to ensure they're really authentic, they really see the huge potential inclusivity has. What's the,
Hmm.
because sometimes diversity may be just seen as just a tick box or a number exercise, but in actual fact, we actually have seen evidence and that shows that the more diverse the team can be, the more it can cover your blind spots and ultimately positively impact business performance and results. So, what would be your advice to leaders that maybe starting to consider this more seriously,
Yes,
but
yes.
they're not there yet, and they may not necessarily be sure this will be have the impact that they were looking for.
I mean, these days we talk about diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. So, diversity, you are right, starts with a representation of the population, the consumer, customer, communities in your organization. And yes, of course, there are numbers involved. You cannot ignore numbers because it's about accountability. But why you bring those people in the organization is for their contributions to the innovation, growth, new ideas, and all that, right? So let's not forget that. In order to bring those ideas to life, you have to create an inclusive environment where you need to hear voices of the organization. You need to make sure they work in a place where they can contribute to the business strategy. So they need to know about it, they need to actually know their contribution, and they need to have moments where they can have their voice significantly in achieving those results. So in order to create inclusive organization, again, it starts at the top, but it is the role of every manager, it is the role of every person in the organization, respecting each other, trusting each other, giving stage to others. And then when we come to equity, to have the right policies in the organization, to have fairness, to make sure that you pay, there is pay equity. You have policies where people can really go out and enjoy their maternity leave, paternity leave, and really come back refreshed and bring their ideas again in a very solid way. um, And the belonging part is today is very critical, and it's part of the overall engagement strategy of talent, because we see a lot of retention issues in the organizations. After the pandemic, people started questioning what they are doing, why they are doing, what is important in life. So if the organization does not create a purpose for the organization, for the employees, and if they don't feel part of or belonging to this organization, then it's very easy for them to make the switch. They make the switch for money, they make the switch for, of course, better manager, better career opportunities, but also for meaningful work. That's how I look at it in a holistic way, rather than, okay, let's have diversity and move on. That's not the way it works these days.
No, absolutely. And this is, we've seen that attracting talent is really important nowadays, but retaining it is equally important. So attraction and retention piece, two separate areas that require often different skill set in order to be able to successfully operate. And Aura, you are now actively involved with the Beba Foundation and empower young female leaders with entrepreneurs. And as you said, you're doing your second career, so to say. Always wonder, what do you do after you've been in such a powerful position after 35 years in corporate? How does life look like in the second career stage? And yeah, if you
Yeah, sure.
tell us more about the foundation as well, but just trying to put myself in your position to see what gives me that joy and satisfaction, that guidance and direction that, hey, I've spent so much of my most, one of the longest period of my life in that corporate world. How do I progress from there onward?
Yes, yes. I think it changes from person to person. You have to find your, I think, passion. And we are moving into the return phase, we call it. And my husband says it's like learn, earn, return.
Learn, earn,
So,
return. Okay, well, that's nice to learn, earn, return. I
so
love that.
now,
With your
I mean,
passion.
learning never stops, of course, but there is a very heavy learning period when you go to college and other degrees and stuff. And then you have to earn and make sure that you are having a good life, and for your family you provide and everything. And the return phase, it doesn't mean that you will just do stuff for good, and I mean, it's also about, still you can have commercial value. But I think the returning part is, do you share your experience with others? Do you create opportunities for others to actually grow, benefit from the opportunities around them? So when I retired from the PepsiCo world in May 2020 and started my new life in June 2020, it was like the pandemic. So I didn't have like a 3 months of going around and having a world trip. I immediately moved on, and said, okay, what is my mission in this new life? So I want to make sure that we attract diverse talent into organizations. We develop this talent in an inclusive and winning organizational culture with purpose. So I started focusing on the search side and the advisory side because of that. I can do it. Then of course, I am in different boards of nonprofits, but also I had a public board where I can actually bring all of my business experience into life. So it's a food company in UK, Bakkavor Group PLC, and I joined in September 2020 to be one of their non-executive board members. And recently, I started actually leading the ESG committee,
Hmm.
which is very close to my heart again, because now I can really bring all the experience into this organization, and we can develop the future ESG strategies with the management, make sure everything is moving in the right direction. And the third leg is the Beba Foundation we established in 2017 in US. It's mainly focusing on entrepreneurship and bringing women and youth the opportunities to develop and understand, their options. And our main focus is in US and Turkey. We have entrepreneurship competitions with very established organizations like Columbia University, School of Professional Studies. We have mentoring programs. In Turkey, we established actually an American program in a big way, which is called Million Woman Mentors. That's mainly for girls and young women in STEM fields to stay and to grow in the STEM fields because that's very much needed in the future. So I have been mentoring actually in total, I think, nine young girls, college students in STEM fields. I'm an industrial engineer, so that gives me pleasure. And the third leg is creating an entrepreneurship training opportunity in high schools. And there is one high school in Turkey. We are working very closely with Darüşşafaka schools. So that's kind of the return part. But I'm also doing mentoring for women in boards in Turkey again. So you see this whole idea of sharing your experience, like what we are doing today. This is also kind of sharing, learning from each other, and creating a better world with our collective intelligence.
No, thank you for doing all this. In fact, that really makes a profound difference. And you have led many regions from Asia to Middle East where probably being a woman in a leadership position may not have been the the easiest thing to do in a nicely way of saying that, which I can understand to some extent why you've set up the Beba Foundation. But what made you get involved in that work, and have you faced any struggles as a female leader in the past, just because you are a female leader?
I mean, as I started in Turkey, having the opportunity to study in good, high schools, colleges, and all that, um, I was able to really join a good organization, grow in the organization, and I never felt like, I'm a woman and I will have difficulties. I never, like thought about those situations when you just face them later in the career, maybe like when you go to Middle East and you are the only woman in the room in a leadership team, then you start questioning, okay, I have to do something about it. But did I personally have difficulties? I mean, I have always used this idea of listening, understanding, and building empathy, respecting each other, trust. So when you approach actually people, men in powerful positions with that approach, we are here for the win-win, for the business. Doesn't matter, if I'm a woman or man. I mean, let's work on the business and create a winning relationship. So building trust. Those are my core values, and I always really use them when I moved around the globe. And I have seen this. Being Turkish means you are, having a Middle Eastern, Asian, and European kind of composition in your values and approach. So I really used, I should say, those values where I go and try to adjust. So when you're in Middle East, just sit and have a coffee with your business partners, understand who they are, who you are, and then move to business and try to build winning relationships. When you're in Asia, I was in a Japan board, Marianne. I mean, like 5 years. I was the only foreigner and woman in a Japanese board. But our chairman was so supportive of diversity, and I was helping them to build that agenda in the company. I never felt like, oh my God, I'm a woman. The only time I should talk about this, the only time I felt what's going on here in the boardroom, I was sitting at the end of the table. Like, it's a big table, the board tables and all that. And I asked, why do we just sit at the very end? And they said in Japan, it's about seniority or age. So you are the youngest in the room. So because I was thinking, oh, I am the only woman, and maybe that's the reason I'm sitting at this very end of the table. But I was the youngest. Look at it. That's the positive aspect. So, okay, wow. So I try to find, the positive things about situations. I think that's also very important. If you are very much stuck with this negatives in life, you will always see something, you will always feel something, and you can take it very seriously and start being the victim. I chose actually to take leadership to do something about it rather than being the victim, I think. So that's my approach to life.
No, thank you for sharing that, Umran. And the question we always have is when it comes down to life balance, especially for women, because
Mhm.
you are gifted by, in personally my understanding, of course, I believe is by God to be the only ones who can give birth. So the question here is often you, by giving birth, this is such a privileged position in many ways, but at the same time, how could you do both? Give life to hopefully generation and children. Of course, some women may choose not to, but in essence, if women do not choose to give birth, then we'll be stuck. There will be no reproduction. It will be like, what's the future? So here is how could we do both? How could we really have a happy family where you could spend the time and care, but also have the life or career or business that you want? Is that possible? Is it done at a certain stage? What is your take? I know you have two wonderful children, two boys that are obviously very successful in that. So, how did you manage that? Because this is really always a question for
Yeah.
a lot of women in leadership positions, especially if they want to go very high.
No, absolutely. I think it needs an environment where you can achieve those goals. So it's the family culture.
Mm,
How we were raised by our families and having that confidence that I can do it. I can do I can be successful at work. I can also have a family. I think that confidence in you built by your parents. So that's very critical. Then when you move on and you have a significant other in your life, a partner, a spouse, whatever we call, then are they supportive of the idea of first you working, traveling, moving to another country, and you know doing it all together. So I'm very grateful that my husband was very supportive. As a professor, he had to change his teaching institutions with my moves to different countries, from Turkey to Hong Kong to Dubai, and then in the US now he's leading our foundation. Then I think the company culture, the corporate culture, you have to make sure there are policies, but also managers who understand and support these situations. So I was promoted twice in PepsiCo when I was pregnant or I delivered my second child. So the first time I was announced to be a general manager, I was 5 months pregnant. So they didn't care if I will just go to the maternity leave and all that. I mean, yes, you go, but then you make it happen, right? With the support of your manager, your team, your company culture. And the second time I was in maternity leave, they called me and they said, now I have a bigger job of 5 countries. Of course, then you have to travel, which makes it more difficult. So you have to make sure your manager gets it, when you can travel, when you cannot. So that dialogue with the manager is very critical. And then I think moving to different countries with your family, that's the big change. You change the lives of everybody in the family because of your job. It feels sometimes very selfish, right? But then you have to let that guilt go, and you try to create as a family a better life, uh, with the possibilities out there. So you have to keep positive. You have to get your support from your family, the bigger family. I mean, my mother, my sister, They always supported, in the early stages of my kids in Turkey. I was lucky. They were supporting together with my husband, my kids at that time, and also having a child care is very critical. So that's a big ecosystem.
To create.
All of these things should work well so you can succeed in the workplace, but also you can have a family and you can grow with them.
Absolutely. And here's the question when it comes down to how business leaders can become really supporters or true advocates for women in leadership. Because now you're giving us a whole perspective of it's not just one thing, it's a whole ecosystem. And what does business leaders could do to support that?
So it starts with the overall idea of inclusion. So we need to make trainings in the organizations about inclusive leadership. How do you become an inclusive leader? You might say, oh, by the way, I mean, I know it kind of, but no, let's do it together. Let's understand it together. And as an organization, let's put some goals together. I think that's part one. Then there are the policies we need to develop. Policies meaning maternity leave, paternity leave, return to work. When sometimes women take breaks a year or two. For example, UK, they sometimes take longer breaks. The legal environment supports that, and that's great. But then when they come back after 2 years, how do I take them back? How do I reskill them, and how do I integrate them into the organization again? Um, so the policies are very important.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the family setting, I think it's about overall, the let's call it the country culture, which is the difficult one. I mean, your family might be very advanced in a very conservative society, and you have to handle those challenges. But then that means we have to train our boys at the younger ages, to show them it's possible. And then our girls, you can do it. So how do we actually raise our kids also make a big difference, right? So I mean, there are actions you can take at every level, family level, in the company, but also go out there and talk about it. Make sure everybody gets it. Not only my company is good, that's not enough. We need to make sure everybody actually internally, externally, we activate this idea of we can do it with the support of others and our own confidence. Yeah.
This is really helpful. We have a question here from Stoyan and Stoyan Yankov. He says, Umram, what inspires you and drives you to keep going, especially in those bad moments or in the mornings that you don't just want to get out of bed?
When I talk to especially young people and hear their concerns about their education, finding a job, or uh, I mean just giving them hope, I think, for what they can do, what they can achieve, um, and having another moment with somebody in that need, in that position, I think is at this point in life is very important for me to see them succeeding. Uh, because sometimes they come back and say, this is what you said, and I still remember it, and this is what happened. Excellent. So if they learn one thing out of my experience, I think that's a reason to get up and do one more.
No, thank you, Umram, for really spreading that care. And what can we do actually to spread the care culture? Um, And does it work? First of all, is there any examples that um, you have seen that leading with care has made a true difference?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think we can achieve results only through people, even if we transform, digitize, make it all automated. Some people should do it, right? I mean, some people should bring you even to that stage of digitalization, transformation, etc. So we can only achieve results with people. So we should not forget that and make sure that those people bring their best to the workplace, bring their authentic self and voice to the workplace, and create results with you. That's a joy, to find those people, to work with them, to deliver results, to create that environment. And at the end, it's not your success as a leader, it's the organization's success. Without them, you cannot do it. Just keep this in mind. That's so critical. So we have to do everything in our, for example, I mean, I will give Saudi Arabia as an example, which I believe is very critical. Um, there was a moment when I was in charge of the overall HR agenda of Asia, Middle East, North Africa. Saudi Arabia decided not to have foreign employees as comfortably as before. So what happened then? The local people were very critical, but there were not enough local men in Saudi Arabia to take those roles. So all of a sudden, I think the local, well-educated women became a strategic uh, source of talent. So at that point, what PepsiCo did, decided to put all the right conditions to bring, in total now, I think they have maybe 150 women in the organization, in the production line, and everywhere in the organization. Of course, you have to respect the local rules, but it is a strategic talent that is sitting outside of your organization. If you don't bring it and if you don't create the right environment for them, you will not succeed. Or you have to invest in a lot of capital to automate your lines, which you can still do, but that's not going to be enough for the short term and the midterm, right? So you have to use the strategic talent in the best way and include them in the success of the organization. So that's just an example. We have to find those creative ways of how we can make it happen with the broader talent pool. And for the boards also, I want to say that my three words for successful board leadership and membership is confidence, courage, and care. And the reason I want to finish with that, because this, you know, podcast is about, or webinar is about the leaders who care, right? So if you join a board, this is the highest level. Um, you have to have the confidence to say what you need to say. You have to have the courage to tackle difficult situations, but you need to care for the business and the people in that organization as a board member to deliver results at the end for the stakeholders, shareholders. So I think we need to be caring at every level. It's not only for business leaders, but from board level to the high school level, or whatever we can do in our capacity. It's good to care. Then you will really make. I mean, you will see the results somehow. Them growing and delivering results or being successful in their life. So that's a great satisfaction.
What a great, the three C's. And
This is.
thank you so much for taking the time today. And
Thank
certainly,
you.
we know, of course, what personally have seen, and many leaders have testified, of course, care is a very powerful way, not only to deliver results, but also to have that joy and that satisfaction. It's not easy, it's difficult, it's tough often, especially in those moments. But it is the right way to do things, no matter how difficult it is. And thank you so much for validating this once again and sharing and being a leader who
Thank
care.
you.
We wish you great success and journey
Thank
with
you.
your second edition of the book, but also with many of the initiatives you are doing. And thank you once again for taking the time today.
Thank you
And
for the opportunity. All the best.
thank you.